All right, welcome everybody. Today,
Welcome.
well, I'm here with Kevin Gormley, our resident tax and certified financial planner, tax guru, and I'm John Creamer, airline pilot and licensed financial advisor, and we're here to talk about pensions. So we'll go over some of the thoughts, the generational differences that I've seen over my life over pensions versus the 401k. I kind of grew up in a family where, we talked about getting a good job and good benefits, staying with a company for longevity reasons. And today's generation, the millennials of the United States, are changing jobs all the time, and we're transferring 401k benefits, and that's more the norm when it comes to planning for retirement. So Kevin's here to help me and just talk about the different benefits. If you do have a job that offers a pension, how to compare and contrast these things and the risk associated with it in your financial plan. So Kevin, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, John. Good to see everybody. So, the word pension, if I say the word pension to certain people, they're like, boring. But if you have a pension, actually, they can be great financial benefits. And the word annuity, again, negative word. But what is an annuity but a pension like payout? So this topic fascinates me, John. Again, some people will find it exciting, some people will not. But I think for pilots at certain airlines, this is a critical decision.
I have experience with pension-like plans because I was in the military. I'm still serving in the reserve aspect of the Air Force. So there are pension benefits if you serve 20 years in the military. So we get a lot of clients that get some pension benefits and then they go on to be airline pilots. Also, I'm a FedEx pilot, and FedEx currently has the A plan, which is a pension, and it pays you an annual salary essentially based on how many years of service you have. So FedEx and UPS are kind of like the last standing pension airlines. There's been a lot of talk with the evolving aspects of pensions and how much they cost companies today. It seems that most of these large companies have gone away from the pension and they've introduced some other benefit, whether it's matching 401k contributions, some non-elective contributions. So we've seen this change over a long period of time, but I'll go over a little bit of history of pensions. We can talk about that a little bit. The earliest pension program actually started in 1875, and it was just a way for companies to attract employees. It was a guaranteed income. If you give a certain number of years of service, then you will be rewarded with a pension that pays you the rest of your life. Companies wanted to attract good employees, and that was kind of the basis for it. And
Yeah,
then as well,
John,
yeah, go ahead.
John, I'll tell you that, like Warren Buffett, we always have to throw at least one Warren Buffett quote in. He says that we hit the lottery being born in America and being born at this time. I mean, retirement wasn't a thing a lot of times in the past. And so we are lucky that we have these problems. These are true first world problems, but please continue.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that the idea of retirement, people don't realize how recent that it actually is. To retire at age 65 is a pretty new idea. And then now we even have the fire folks that are trying to get enough income that they're financially independent and retire in their 40s or 50s. I mean, that's just an incredible opportunity. So we're lucky to be even discussing the differences of it, but I think at the end of
Right.
the day, we're all pretty lucky. And then we've kind of seen this development with companies as global business became more competitive. Companies found defined contribution plans to be very unpredictable. So the companies themselves had to take their capital and invest it and create returns in order to pay these pensions. So based on the unpredictability and based on the growing life expectancy of people, as people live longer, these pensions became more and more expensive. So longevity for their employees mixed with variable market returns made these pension plans fairly unpredictable. So I think we've seen a lot of this, and we talk about the airlines are like the headliners for pension plans. The United and Delta, they have all gone away from the pension, and so you're seeing this movement towards non-elective contribution and matching components to 401ks to basically offset the value of the pension. So
Yeah,
we'll
John,
talk
I
about.
have a I have a comment on that.
Yeah.
So what's kind of interesting is that, companies have gone away from pensions. A lot of people are upset about that. And a lot of people think, well, if the companies are going away from it, I must be getting screwed. And in some ways that's true, but like the largest pension failure was United Airlines back in 2005 and Delphi in 2009. These were a lot of people were vested in them, and they ended up not getting as much money. So, if the house is on fire, you have a problem too. So, even though that the companies take the risk with the pension, if the pension is still not managed correctly, it's your risk too. So that's something I don't think people think about. There's not been a lot of big pensions that have gone bankrupt recently, however, that I'm aware of. But continue on with the discussion around why other reasons why companies have gone away from pensions.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I think that we tend to make them simple in our brain. Pension
Right,
equals guaranteed income, and 401k means I'm at all this risk in the market. So I think
right.
as an employee, we say, well, the pension's definitely better because it's guaranteed, and my 401k is directly based on the market returns. But like you said, there's a little more depth to that analysis. So I'll talk a little
Yeah.
bit about.
Only two things in life that are guaranteed are death and taxes. The word pension isn't in there, but there are some guarantees. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, you bet. We talked a little bit about just the expense of it. We have this thing we call legislation risk in the financial world where we can't control the legislation that gets put forth. And we have some legislation that came about in 1974, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, or ERISA, as we call it. And it basically confined some of these pension funds to be invested more conservatively. So it set out that the investing could only contain no more than 35% in equities. So the market returns, and that compounded with low interest rates for a long period of time. We're just kind of coming off the floor of low interest rates means that these funds were not producing as much income. And so it was getting harder and harder for companies to either raise the pension with inflation or pay these pensions out. So there are several instances of pension funds going bankrupt, or at least the person getting less than they were originally guaranteed. So we do see some of that. I think we're seeing less of it because of these legislation issues, but companies are going away from it just because it's expensive.
John, isn't there a government body that backs these pensions if something does bad happen within the company?
Yes, there are provisions, and I think to me it kind of seems like insurance. So the
Right.
PBGC, I
Yep.
believe,
Yep. Yep.
uh,
Pension Benefit Guaranteed Corporation.
and so there is backdrops to these things. If pension funds go underfunded or they go bankrupt, there are provisions that you will get some of the compensation that you were guaranteed originally. So it doesn't mean you'll come away with nothing if your company goes bankrupt. It's not all or nothing. But you likely will receive a reduced benefit than what you were promised if it does come to that. But they're definitely more protected these days, but I think being more protected is a two-edged blade. More protection equals more conservative investments. It also makes them
Yeah.
just more expensive to offer to employees now. I was born in 1987. I'm a certified millennial, right in the middle of it. Pensions were less and less talked about, more talked about by my parents. But say somebody comes to you as a client and they're in their mid 50s or mid 60s, approaching retirement, and they have pension income. What are the things that you're thinking about as a financial planner when it comes to their plan?
Yeah, so many people don't have pensions that when people with pensions come to us, we try to put a value on those pensions as far as a asset, because a pension is a future stream of income, right? It's not really, it doesn't feel like an asset, but you are going to get money in the future, a certain amount of money in the future, and you can put a value on that. So many of the military folks, as a matter of fact, most of the military folks, John, will come to us and say, I'm behind, and they don't understand the value of the pension. So as you said, there's just not as much information out there about it. But when we see that pension, we think bond-like return. We think guaranteed. And so in theory, you should, I'm using the word should on purpose here, you should be able to take more risk in your stock bond portfolio if you have a guaranteed income stream. But that doesn't happen a lot in actual financial plans because people still can't stand to see their stock and bond portfolio go down. So that is really what we think about. We think about guaranteed income. Most people undervalue the pension that bring it to us to look at it. So, but that's what we think about, is put a value on it and then project it into the future. Now, the other important part of planning for pensions is when we talk about the future being uncertain, it is, but we don't know how long an individual is going to live. If an individual is married, we don't know how long those two are going to live. And many times people are very disappointed that the pension is not going to be left for their children and grandchildren. We also don't know inflation, and most of the pensions, other than military, from what I've seen, have not been inflation protected.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into every pension is built different, basically. I know the military pension does have a cost of living adjustment. It seems that every year there is a 1 or 2% increase in the pension benefit. And that just depends on inflation. But from the 15 years that I've been in the military, it seems to always be a little bit less than inflation. So the buying power of your pension may decrease over time. So that goes into the category of inflation risk. When someone brings a pension in, you have to look at the fine details of how the pension is built, the guaranteed income that they're getting, and then any cost of living adjustments over the time period play a huge role in the compensation that were received. But yeah, I like the idea of looking into the details of it and trying to figure out, is this something that I'm going to have for the entirety of the person, the benefactor of it, or there's other options when it comes to taking your pension. I know the military does a spouse option with a reduced payment. So these are all math problems, and you can put that value out there for somebody. So I think that's kind of, like you said, valuing the pension is the first line of defense to kind of adding that to your financial plan. So I like that.
And John, there's lots of information out there, and I've worked with a number of people in the pharmaceutical industry who always have cash balance pensions, which they could take either the lump sum or the pension itself, the annuity. And what's fascinating to me is that as planners, we really try to get them to understand the benefits of the pension, because everybody wants to take the cash. I shouldn't say everybody. I don't have the exact statistics, but with our own clients, most of our clients have taken the cash balance, even when we told them we thought they should take the pension. And that's pretty universal with cash balances. So sometimes when people see what the pension is actually worth, they actually want the cash.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. I would think that you would probably have an even mix of, based on personalities, whether they want the guaranteed income or the cash. But yeah, interesting that most people are taking the cash anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, FedEx is fascinating because you get both, right? So and UPS, that's the exciting part of working for those organizations.
Yeah, it's definitely a great benefit. And that's really how the military system works now too. The blended retirement system is built very much that way, where they took the pension benefits down by 10%, and then they added in a match that goes into the TSP, which is essentially the military's 401k. And so it allows them to have both sides of it. They have a little bit of a pension benefit, as well as the option to have investments, watch that money grow, and basically have a hybrid plan. And that's kind of the situation I'm in. I'm in this hybrid, probably have some pension income, and then the rest of it will be dependent on my 401k or my IRAs. So I fall into this early millennial stage where there are hybrid plans out there. So whether you think the pension is the best thing or the 401k is the best thing for you, if you are in this hybrid scenario, definitely get with a financial planner and come
Yeah,
up with.
it's interesting, John, because all the overwhelming evidence on money is that we like rules of thumb. We like what fancy word is heuristics. We just like easy ways to make the decision. And even after you go through all these complex ideas, many times the decision is made simply. So, but let's look at the risks of the cash balance. Let's look at the risks of the pension, if you don't mind going through the risks of each of.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is just the buying power. If I get a pension, and the way that the pension is built at FedEx is it is a set amount. It's based on how many years of service you have, your high end income for your top 3 years, and then it pays out based on those years of service. Now, there is no cost of living adjustment associated with it. So when I look at those numbers without any raise in the pension benefit, I'm coming up on inflation risk. So inflation risk is the first one that I want to talk about. People have to do that adjustment because buying power for me 30 years from now, upon retirement, is much less if I assume a 2 to 3% inflation year to year. So I think when we talk pensions, we have to talk inflation risk. That's kind of coming off of a high inflationary times here. We've seen the last couple of years that's been way up. So it has decreased the buying power of these pensions, and people need to take that into consideration. Another aspect to pensions I think about is disability and survivor risk. So if anything happens to you on the job before you want to retire, your pension is based on years of service to your employer. So if, an accident happens and you can't work for the full 25-year career, then what are your options? And then survivability or survivor risk is just, you talked about pensions can't be transferred to your heirs. So passing on generational wealth, passing on lump sum asset to your spouse, those are also, risks that should be considered when it comes to pensions.
Right, right. And the risk of bankruptcy is always, we never want to fearmonger ever. That's not our role as financial planners. Our role is to think things through and think about probabilities. We think the risk of bankruptcy of a pension is pretty low today. But the one thing I thought about, John, is that if you look at the last 20 years of market returns, they've been pretty good. So if we have a decade of poor returns, then we might have a different situation with pensions. But what are your thoughts about a potential bankruptcy of a pension program?
Yeah, I think to me, I feel like the potential is pretty low. You can do the cost benefit analysis of the risk. I mean, coming up with that percentage chance, I mean, somewhere in the single digits is the chance that the company that I work for is going to go bankrupt and I'll see very little pension.
Right.
I think people go that way, their mind goes that way, and that we think about the worst case scenario, and there's ways that I think you can hedge that by either investing your money, saving it, and putting it away for that situation. But I don't think it's something that really should play into the plan. Like we just forget about the pension and just in case it goes bankrupt. I think that the majority of people with pensions have received some of those benefits. So I think the likelihood is pretty small, but still, should be in the back of your brain.
Yeah, and they'll send you out a document every year to tell you how funded the pension is, and and so you can kind of keep track of it. And what's interesting to me, though, again, about investing your money versus a pension is investing, very conservatively. So many times people feel like I have to invest my 401k aggressive. I have to, but you really don't have to. If you wanted to invest, even if you're a young person, if you wanted to invest in a 60-40 or even a 50-50 portfolio, that's still going to grow a lot over time. The benefit of the pension is that they have a mortality credit, which just means all the people that live get all the money for the people that die. So, but you still don't have to invest, crazily in your 401k. You can still be a conservative investor.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I think that we were kind of told that from a young age, if I was, we'll set this situation up. I'm a 36-year-old hybrid plan person, and my company is offering an option to opt out of a pension and go, get extra money put into my 401k. If I go to you as my financial planner and I say, hey, this is my option. I want to invest this in 100% equities, and I want to grow this money to amass an amazing fortune someday. What are your risk categories for me choosing to do that and going, incredibly aggressive with my portfolio?
Yeah, so it's all about sticking with the plan. I mean, probably in everything Leading Edge has ever made, it's all about sticking with the plan. So, if you can go 100% equities, Charlie is a great example of this, and never sell, never whimper, never cry, always know, have confidence. He could still be wrong. The market could still go down and not come back up. It's still possible. So, but in a case where you're putting all your eggs in your 401k basket, yes, diversifying does make a lot of sense. And not worrying about the yearly returns makes a lot of sense.
No, I think that that's the important key to all of it is to say that when the majority of people that I talk to about this, they tend to want control. Type A personalities, they want control of their 401ks. They want to choose their investments. They don't want, a portion of their employer returns or employer compensation to end up in something that they can't control. They can't control how their pension fund is invested. It's controlled by the company and a fiduciary. So they would like the money. And I think that that's kind of a generational difference where people my age are saying, hey, I want to see it. I want to see it on I want to see it on my portfolio. I want to see the balance. I want to watch it grow year to year. And those are things that we have to consider that, as long as we can stomach the down years, and as long as we can be comfortable with, not making big mistakes. But the flip side of that is, I think there are people out there that have made big money mistakes. They've sold at the bottom and they've not gotten back in, and they've made hundreds of thousands of dollar mistakes that you look back and they would have been better just staying in a pension fund. So I think you're
Yeah.
exactly right. It all breaks down to how disciplined are you, and how much do you know about all of this? So.
Yeah, the new Southwest Airlines cash balance pension, people are upset because it's 40% stock, 60% bonds. And again, all that's doing is making less risk on the company. So anyway, I do, there's always this fear and greed that tugs at us, John. And the fear allows the pension to allow us to sleep at night. The greed allows us to invest in high risk assets. So both are good, I think.
Yeah, that's really the moral of the story, and kind of the closing arguments for me is just we have to pay close attention to all the types of risk. So your pension fund isn't risk less. Your 401k has risk, but it also has benefits too. So I think analyzing the risk that, your current situation, that's where having a financial advisor, having somebody on your team, or just a mentor that and has had some experience in market downturns before. Before 2020, my investing career was all up. Like all I knew were gains in the market. So I'm kind of getting, more experience in this, and I've seen some market downturns. I've seen some bad years, and really having the discipline over a long period of time is good. But if you have a pension, that's great. If you have a 401k or you have a mixture of both, all those situations are great. You just have to understand the risk that's associated with each. So
yeah, and you can buy a pension today. You can buy one today, all week rather. You can buy a pension today. You can buy a pension all week. It's called an annuity. So they are always available out on the marketplace, John.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way and a good segue into our next episode. And episode 2 of this series, we're going to talk about how to value your pension. So just as a lead in, we'll talk about, there is a present value of your pension currently, how many years of service you have, and what that is worth on the open market. So we'll pull some annuities and we'll let you know what they cost, and um, give you guys a better idea of how to value my pension and how that plays into a financial plan. So there's a lot of details when it comes to pensions. Everyone is built a little bit different. And it's hard to kind of value that because you don't get a letter in the mail every year telling you how much it's worth. So that's my a little bit of a struggle with the pension is we know it's back here, but we don't really have a value for it.
Yeah.
That's why I appreciate you coming on here and giving me some perspective, because I know you've worked with lots of clients in the past that have that pension available to them.
Well, John, it's a pleasure. And if there's anything we can do to help, please reach out. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. We'll see you next time.
Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Leading Edge Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.